Esta es la reunión para discutir la propuesta de unidades de vivienda accesorias en la ciudad de Tucson. Mi nombre es María Galloso, soy un planeador principal en el Departamento de Planeación y Servicios al Desarrollo. Si ustedes desean que se traduzca esta presentación en español, por favor háganmelo saber y con mucho gusto les voy a hacer la interpretación. Y también va a haber unas reuniones más pequeñas de grupo en esta sesión y también pueden ser realizadas en español. Así es que por favor, si hay alguien que quiere que se traduzca esta reunión en español, dígamelo saber, hágamelo saber ahorita, ya sea verbalmente o puede decirnos a través del chat.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I'm Bill Leonard. I'm your facilitator today, speaking to you from Portland, Oregon. I'm not on a mountain at the moment, but that'd be nice. But thank you for participating and taking your Saturday morning for this important project. I'm here to help support a respectful and productive community discussion around ADUs. My job is to make sure that this thing stays on track from the people part and the process part. So, but a little bit about this. We've got a 90-minute meeting. We've got so far 33 people in the room, 70 signed up, so more will be coming. So you know what? It's a bit of a challenge to do this on Zoom, to get people to participate and feel good about the meeting. So we're doing our best to make sure everybody has a chance to participate. The staff has spent 6 months listening and taking feedback from the community, and now they're going to show you a proposal on ADUs. We want your feedback. So thanks for your patience as we go through this presentation. You'll have time to speak. There'll be about 45 minutes dedicated to that. If you feel after this that you didn't have enough time to speak, put it in the chat, let staff know, and come to the next meeting. There'll be more time for you to speak there. By the way, this is being recorded, as are all public meetings. So formally, what's the meeting purpose? We're here to build a shared understanding of what ADUs are and how they could benefit the community. We're going to share what we heard at the first public meetings and through online comments, present a capital word draft. So this is a draft, okay? It can be changed, and we want your upgrades on this. We want to listen to your ideas on how to improve this draft. So staff is going to be asking you for upgrades, and allow some dialogue with your fellow community members, and make sure you know what's coming up next. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so the agenda. First, here we are welcoming you. Staff is going to give you some background on the project and what they've been hearing, and then Dan will present the draft proposal for ADUs in Tucson. After that, we're actually going to have a quick poll. We're going to have 2 polls. One poll before we go into small groups and one poll afterwards. So make sure you stick around for this whole thing, because the final poll is going to be, how do you feel about this project? And then we'll do closing steps. So next slide. Yes, okay, very important to keep this on track. There may be 20 people in one of these rooms. We hope it'll be smaller than that. But so in order to do that, we have a little process. We're asking you to be concise. And particularly, so staff is going to be calling on people one after another, allowing everybody to speak. And so respect the time limits, please, so everybody can have a chance. And use the chat if you feel like you need to put more into it. Be respectful, as always, of others who have different viewpoints. That's going to happen on this project, definitely happening. So, but that's all good. You know, we're going to take all this in and just stay on topic. So with that, next slide, please. Corin's going to take you through the background.
Thank you, Bill, and thank you all again for being here today and spending some of your Saturday discussing accessory dwelling units. I'm Corin Manning, Planning Administrator for Planning and Development Services with the City of Tucson, and I'm joined today by several colleagues as well in Planning and Development Services, who you will all get a chance to speak with in the breakout groups and hear from in a few minutes. So I want to start by just going over a little bit about what accessory dwelling units are and why we are looking at this housing option for Tucson. So an accessory dwelling unit is an independent housing unit with its own kitchen, that's a really important piece, bathroom, living room, and sleeping space. These units are meant to be smaller housing units. They're usually under about 1,000 square feet, and they are meant to be accessory to a primary residence or larger main residence. There's a lot of different terms that you might already be using for these types of units or have heard of previously. They're often referred to as casitas or a mother-in-law unit, granny flat, backyard cottage, carriage house, a lot of different terms. Next slide, we'll give you a few visuals. So what do these look like? There's a lot of different forms these can take. Kind of the most classic is what you see in the top left. That's the detached casita or ADU, where it's a smaller unit separate from the main house. It can also be attached to the main house though, kind of like an addition or a portion of the house that's been converted to its own unit. We see often attics or basements turned into accessory dwelling units, maybe not as common here in Tucson, but very common in other types of communities. What we do see a bit of in Tucson is a garage or carport conversion. So there's a lot of different forms that ADUs can take. Next slide. And we already have casitas in Tucson or accessory dwelling units. There are some ways that these can be built today, and we'll go over that a little bit more. We'll get into the zoning in just a minute. But we do see these around Tucson. They were built historically in many neighborhoods where it was common to have multi-generational families living together. And they have been built over time. People have found ways to do it, but our current zoning does not make it easy to build these in most parts of the city and on most typical residential lots that we have in the city. So this is an example of one casita. You can see there's access to this casita from the alley. There's also access on the other side of the casita. So a lot of these are alley facing, can be located in the rear of the lot. That's pretty typical. Next slide. And this gives you an interior shot of an accessory dwelling unit. They're usually pretty small spaces, as I mentioned, so people get very creative with the use of space. They're usually very efficient use of interior space. Studio and one bedroom is very common for a casita or ADU. Next slide. So why are we looking at changing our code to make it easier to build accessory dwelling units? There's a few big citywide goals that this proposal aims to address. One is affordable housing. As most of you probably know, there is a lack of affordable housing in Tucson. We have a lot of families and households that are housing cost burdened, meaning they're spending more than 30% of their income on their housing costs. So we have a real need for affordable housing. We also need more housing options for seniors. Our community is aging. And many people want to age in place and stay in their existing neighborhood. ADUs are one way that people can stay in their neighborhood or even on their property and have a smaller living space or move in with family members and live in an accessory dwelling unit. A third goal is climate action and resiliency. This is a major goal for our city. Our mayor and council declared a climate emergency last year. In recognition of the need to take action and make our community more resilient as our community warms. And accessory dwelling units are one way to promote sustainability in our community by building off of our existing infrastructure and really building inward as a community instead of outward. Accessory dwelling units are usually built in areas that are already developed. So they allow us to take advantage of existing infrastructure, roads, transit. These help create more walkable neighborhoods by adding density and allow people to take advantage of transit and reduce the number of vehicle trips needed. So these are some of the big goals that we have as a community. There's a lot of strategies that we are pursuing on each of these topics. So accessory dwelling units are by no means the answer to any of these very complex, very important goals. But they're one slice and one piece of the puzzle for addressing some of these big concerns as a community. Next slide. So we began this project last year in November of 2020 when Mayor and Council initiated this code amendment and asked staff in Planning and Development Services to begin developing a proposal to amend our zoning code to make it easier to build accessory dwelling units and to work with our community and stakeholders on developing this proposal. Since then, staff has been doing a bit of research and analysis. We have looked at a lot of other communities that have allowed accessory dwelling units to get a sense of best practices around the country. We've also brought in a firm, Opticos Design, to help us do a lot of test fit and site analysis for how accessory dwelling units can fit on existing lots in Tucson. As well, we've been taking in feedback and input from the community through a few different avenues. Based on input from mayor and council, we established a stakeholder group that includes a variety of folks in our community, neighborhood representatives, housing advocates, real estate professionals, architects, with a wide range of perspectives and expertise on this issue. That group has been meeting monthly since December and has been kind of our group for brainstorming and hashing out a lot of the issues related to this code amendment. We also held a round of public meetings in February of this year to get initial input. And here we are again in May with a draft proposal to share based on that input we received earlier. We also have had an online survey open and got input that way. After this, we will continue to refine our proposal, and we hope to hold a study session with the Planning Commission in late June, and potentially a public hearing in late July. This is all leading up to mayor and council holding a public hearing and considering this amendment as they consider any amendment to our Unified Development Code or zoning code. Next slide. So a little bit more about the outreach we've conducted. As I mentioned, we held 3 virtual public meetings in February, just like this, over Zoom. We had about 200 people attend. We've also gotten 77 comments in our online survey. 39 of those expressed concerns and sometimes ideas and solutions around accessory dwelling units. 37 of those were very supportive of the proposal overall. We also have a stakeholder group, as I mentioned. There's 40 members of that group, and they have held 6 meetings so far. So again, there's a lot of different avenues we've used to get input on this proposal. Next slide. So this is a little bit more about what we heard in February at the previous public meetings. We asked people how they think accessory dwelling units could benefit their neighborhood and or family. And we heard a lot about how people think this could be helpful. So meeting affordable housing needs, supporting seniors who wish to age in place, providing more options for multi-generational housing and family support. We heard a lot of personal stories of people who had an ADU and this allowed them to care for family members or want to be able to build one for that purpose in the future. Providing income and financial stability for homeowners, as well as our broader community, promoting neighborhood stability so that people can stay in the neighborhood and age in place, and a diversity of housing types in a given neighborhood. Also that ADUs are a form of infill development that can reduce sprawl and support climate solutions, and heard that people want to allow for the regulation and improvement of existing units. Next slide. We also heard some concerns. Some of those relate to the impact of rental housing, student housing and mini dorms, short-term rentals, parking and traffic, privacy issues and neighborhood safety, property values and taxes, potential for speculation, the impact on affordability, the cost to develop an ADU, what the specifics of the proposed regulations would be, enforcement, monitoring, sustainability and the heat island effect, and then historic standards and neighborhood character. So those are some of the concerns. We also asked people about potential solutions and ways those concerns could be addressed. And some of the ideas were, really fine-tuning and crafting our regulations in terms of ADU size, lot size, setbacks, etc., providing financial assistance to promote affordability, creating model plans and expedited permitting, occupancy requirements, parking requirements, utility meters, enforcement, neighborhood-based regulations, and sustainability incentives were some of the ideas. Next slide. I also mentioned that we have had an online survey running. This is a word cloud showing you some of the key concepts that came up in the comments that were concerned about this proposal. So some of the issues people brought up were student housing, affordability, absentee landlords, historic preservation, parking, neighborhood character, things like that. So you can get a little snapshot from this of what some of the top concerns are. Next slide. And then we also received a lot of comments that were very supportive and excited about this proposal. So some of the things people mentioned as reasons that they are supportive are adding to our housing supply, having space for elderly parents, promoting affordability, space for family, access to public transit, density, and sustainability were some of the topics that we heard. Next slide. So I also mentioned that we established a stakeholder group that includes folks from across the city. And I actually want to invite Valerie Lane, who's a member of that stakeholder group and is on the call today, to say a little bit about the process that that stakeholder group has gone through over the past few months.
Hi, good morning. Can you hear me?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, thanks, Corin. So we started meeting in December, and like Corin said, our group is made up of a sort of wide range of people, from architects to realtors to some builders are on that group, and a lot of neighborhood advocates, and even some social group advocates as well. So so that's been really nice. We started out by we looked at the existing codes first to understand what the existing codes allow for, and then we also had a deep look at what people are actually doing around the city. And so the idea of ADUs across Tucson in our neighborhoods is not really new. It's just that people have found many loopholes around this stuff. So so that was kind of an interesting beginning for us. And then, you know, we've had some difficult conversations as far as discussing how the history of zoning and some of the, you know, economic and ethnic exclusionary issues that come up because of our zoning laws. And so we've been quite sensitive to try and address those in a more inclusive and progressive future. And let's see. We've a couple of meetings we've broken down into smaller groups in order to discuss some of those more difficult issues, and then come back as the larger group to sort of flush those out. And Corin's group has been really good at summarizing our conversations, and then have now turned those into the proposal that they're going to put in front of you today. And let's see. I think that's all. I think it's been a really mostly positive conversation. Not everybody agrees at all times during our conversations, and we all kind of come with different perspectives. But I feel confident that a lot of the viewpoints of a variety of people across Tucson are being represented, or at least spoken up for within our meetings. So yeah.
Great. Thank you, Valerie. And there's a few other members of the stakeholder group in this meeting as well, so you can hear from them in your breakout groups. So these are the goals for the code amendment that the stakeholder group prioritized. It hits on a lot of what we heard, and what you saw was brought up at the public meetings in February. So increasing the supply of affordable housing, encouraging flexible housing options for seniors, supporting multi-generational households, climate resilient and sustainable development, providing supplemental income to property owners, and allowing for more diverse and flexible housing options in our neighborhoods. As well, permitting a housing style that already exists and providing a legal avenue for upgrades and retaining neighborhood character. Next slide. So, I want to say a little bit more about how accessory dwelling units can provide affordable housing, because this is a really big topic. This is one of our overarching goals for the proposal. And I'm not sure if you guys noticed, but on the word cloud that we shared just a minute ago, affordability was actually at the center of most of the comments, whether people were concerned about this proposal or very supportive. I think that is really an overarching issue. And I think there's a broad understanding in our community that this is a major issue for Tucson right now. But if people have questions about how accessory dwelling units really do provide affordable housing. So there's a few ways, and accessory dwelling units are work a little bit differently than other types of housing because they're can be either rental or home ownership housing. And there's a lot of different ways they can function to support affordable housing. For one, they add to the supply of housing for our community, just putting more on the market and making more housing available as our need increases. Additionally, research has found that accessory dwelling units, when they are rented at market rate, tend to rent for lower cost than is typical for the neighborhood where that accessory dwelling unit is located, which helps promote more mixed income communities. What this means is that accessory dwelling units, even when they are located in higher cost or more affluent, high opportunity neighborhoods, they tend to be lower than other rental housing in that neighborhood, providing opportunity for more inclusive mixed income neighborhoods. A couple other points: accessory dwelling units are usually smaller units. They don't come with all the amenities of new rental housing in a new apartment building. So often they are lower cost just on the market. These units can also be developed and rented for lower costs using subsidies or incentives. We've looked at a lot of case studies of how other communities have used programs to bring down the cost of ADUs when they are rented to lower income households. And they can also provide additional income for a homeowner, making homeownership more sustainable and promoting neighborhood stability as people maybe choose to stay in place in their neighborhood with that additional supplemental income. Additionally, we see, and this is how accessory dwelling units are a little bit different than other housing. Many units are not rented on the market. They're actually serving as housing for family members or friends. So often the kind of affordability calculation for people might not be, an ADU compared to rental housing or purchasing. It might be compared to the cost of assisted living and having other caregivers for family members. The cost of childcare may factor in if an accessory dwelling unit allows you to have a family member live with you who can help out with other household needs like childcare. So there's a lot of different factors, and it's very individual to the household and family is what we've seen. So with that background, I want to turn it over to Dan to share our proposal for accessory dwelling units.
Excellent. Thanks, Corin. I really appreciate it. Appreciate everyone coming. I'm Dan Bursick. I am a principal planner with the City of Tucson Planning and Development Services. I work in code development and long-range planning. And before we get started, I wanted to just talk a little bit about what is allowed today, so then I can set up the conversation of why we're doing this and kind of where ADUs fill the gap. So we really have two, forms of housing that we have that are similar to ADUs, but not quite ADUs. So first is sleeping quarters. These are allowed pretty much on any residentially zoned parcel with a residential use currently. Their size is limited to 50% of the size of a principal structure. The main difference between this and what an ADU would potentially be, or what we're looking at, is that only a kitchenette is allowed. So it's a mini fridge and like a microwave instead of having a range or a full size or larger fridge. For these, there's no additional parking that's currently required. So there isn't a parking requirement for them. You can build them in your backyard. And then the maximum building height is 12 feet, unless it's attached to a principal structure. You saw some of those examples of ADUs that are attached to where it could be up to whatever the zone allows. So if you're in R1 or whatever, it's usually like 25 feet or something of that sort. Secondary residential units. So these are just a full second residential unit. These are allowed in R1, R2, and R3 zones, but it's based on lot size. So in an R1 parcel, you have to have a lot that's 10,000 square feet or larger. In an R2 lot, you have to have a parcel that's 5,808 square feet or larger. And then R3, it's 1,210 square feet based on the residential density essentially allowed. There is no size limit on these, though it does have a 25% difference for a primary structure in R1. So an example of that would be, let's say, my house is 1,400 square feet. I could build a 2,000 square foot second residential unit as long as it met all of the criteria that was necessary in my backyard. A full kitchen is allowed for these units. However, it is allowed to, or it's required to park per the zone and the zone code. And then maximum building height is the same as the primary dwelling. It's whatever's allowed by the zone. So generally it's about 25 feet or so for residential zone. So those are the two. What we're looking for is really something in between here, right? It's a full kitchen, but it's not something that's a full second residential unit. It's not as large as that. It's not, you know, it doesn't have the impact that that would potentially have. So for the proposal, what we're starting with, you know, this is the building size and the requirement that we're looking at. We're looking at our draft proposal with a 1,000 square foot maximum size for the ADU. Down below, you'll see an example of one on an R1 lot, and one on an kind of typical R2 lot that we see throughout the city. The reason why we kind of came to this conclusion was, one, we've listened to feedback from our stakeholder meetings, but and the public meetings, but it allows for enough space to have a 2-bedroom unit. But it also, that size limits it from really going beyond that. The smaller size limits the impact on neighborhoods and the surrounding properties around them. And it's simple for applicants to understand and staff to administer. This was one of the discussions that we had on whether or not it would be just a flat amount or it would be a percentage. The 50% is, it tends to penalize especially smaller the properties that may be larger lots, but smaller size. So if there's a 1,000 square foot house, it would only be allowed to do a 500 square foot kind of sleeping quarters or things of that sort. So it's really looking at that and kind of how that would work. And it does limit that because it's potential. If you have a 2,500 square foot hut, you could have a 12,000 square foot ADU and that type of thing. So that's the size limit. We did look at setbacks and development standards related to this. And we did an analysis of really different lots throughout the city. We looked at Midtown, we looked at kind of the center city, we looked at the east side. And really, it seems that within our current development standards that we could fit an ADU on almost all lots. So we are proposing no changes to setbacks, maximum building height, and maximum lot coverage related to accessory dwelling units. One thing that we do have as well already is the existing design development option, which would provide an avenue to reduce setbacks on a site-by-site basis. And what's nice about that is that it does include notification of the surrounding properties. Additionally, it allows for us to put site-by-site conditions on those to mitigate whatever that impact could potentially be if we were reducing those setbacks. So that's related to setbacks and dimensional standards. No changes really to that, fits within it. Just to touch a little bit on building standards, just to make sure everyone's clear. So on the left there, you see the home on wheels. This is not a tiny home on wheels. It is required to have a permanent foundation. That's a different thing. And then additionally, there's this inclusive home design. So we've heard comments related to inclusivity and making sure that it's accessible for seniors, especially as they age in place. And it does have to comply with the inclusive home design regulations. Those are things such as 0-step entry, grab bars, et cetera, to make sure that those units, especially the new units that are coming online, are meeting those criteria. And that was put in place back in 2007 and would be required for these. Related to kind of where you can build these ADUs. So again, we kind of looked at kind of what we're doing for sleeping quarters and what we're doing for secondary residential units. And really it's meant for single and 2-family residents. So this is an example here. All lots with a single family or 2-family residence may have an ADU. It's not necessarily by zone, it's by use. Because it's tied to that residential use. Because there are residential units in C1 or C2 zones sometimes that would be that way. For existing homes in newer subdivisions, single-family residents may have one ADU so long as it meets new lot coverage requirements for the zone. So there's this 70% lot coverage. You would have to meet the lot coverage requirements for that. And then new construction and subdivisions will have different standards, and we're still looking into that. So if feedback, we're looking for that related to that. Related to privacy mitigation and historic design standards, there was a lot of concern about historic preservation zone, neighborhood preservation zone, and those requirements that go along with that, and how this would affect it. So those will continue to be applied in those areas to ensure that the project meets the design standards for them. So it still has to go through NPZ review, still has to go through HPZ review related to that. We have heard a little bit of concern as well related to kind of historic preservation and the historic kind of the historic neighborhoods that may have tax credits and things of that sort. We are in contact with, we've been working through our historic preservation officer, and we have been in contact with SHPO related to this just to make sure that it doesn't have that impact. Most of these units would be in the backyard. Things that really affect the delisting of properties are related to actual like changes to the facade of the building and walls and things of that sort that can be put in front of the property, not necessarily ones in the back. And there is quite a bit of support within the historic community related to this in other communities as well. So those remain in place. I do want to mention that as well that the group dwelling ordinance, which is something that I know is a large importance to a lot of the communities and people that we talk to, will remain in place as well related to that. So this does not affect that. Related to parking, this is kind of we were kind of looking for a balance here. Related to parking. So the requirement is 1 parking space required per accessory dwelling unit. The requirement may be satisfied through on-site or on-street parking, and on-street parking may require the use of the city parking permit program. So we've heard some pretty good things from some of the people who have had experience with this parking permit program, and in some cases and many cases it can help to mitigate some of those impacts. The parking requirement can be waived based on proximity to transit or bike boulevards. And then parking may be accessed from alleys per UDC regulation. So there is a regulation within the UDC that sets a criteria for when you can utilize that alley, and then we would review for that. So part of that is 20-foot width. Part of it's related to it has to have some sort of dust control and mitigation related to that, and accessibility standards that go along with that. There is no change to the parking requirements for sites with 5+ bedrooms in R1 zone. So that's not changing at all. That is the requirement where you go over 5. It's on the lot. You basically have to park 1 additional parking space per bedroom as you go up. Related to occupancy. So as of our proposal, there is no proposed occupancy requirements related to this. It does have to comply with the group dwelling regulations, as we had stated before. Really, this came down to the difficulty of enforcement. It is incredibly difficult for owner occupancy requirements to enforce. It also creates a lot of issues related to homeowners if they try to sell their property. To where that creates problems. Owner occupancy requirements, from what we've seen as well, tend to be in smaller communities and ones that really can put that amount of effort and resources into enforcing those type of things. I do want to just mention related to, I know there's been concerns about short-term rentals, things like Airbnb, VRBO, things of that sort. Arizona currently limits really what we can do related to regulations on short-term rentals. So we are tied as far as how we can really regulate those type of things within our code. So related to sustainability, so I mean, there are a lot of things that are inherently kind of sustainable about accessory dwelling units. The use of existing infrastructure, increasing density to support transit systems so people don't drive as much, so you reduce those trips, are things that are inherently kind of sustainable about development patterns related to this, and kind of mitigating some of the sprawl that may happen if you don't have that option. But there's also, related to this, were concerns about urban heat island effect and how that might impact neighborhoods. One of the things we did look into, we looked at a study of Savano done by some researchers at USC, I believe. We talked to some researchers at University of Arizona, and it appears that by having a high albedo roof, basically a cool roof or a light colored roof, you can mitigate a lot of those issues. In fact, in our conversations, they had mentioned that, in a lot of cases, especially when you have like kind of a barren backyard or something like that, it can actually improve the situation related to heat being generated on that lot. So what we're looking to do here is to require for new construction, a cool roof and make it flexible enough to where it's effective, but it doesn't increase the cost too much or much at all. So things like, again, a white roof or something like that. There are additional regulations in the building code that you can potentially, that would also apply to this type of thing related to it. But that's what we're looking for. It also must meet the current energy code. I know that this is something that over the years, year after year, they keep making changes to the building code and increasing energy efficiency. So it does have to meet new energy efficiency measures and current energy code, which is significantly more efficient than stuff even 10 years ago. So just to kind of give you a summary of the proposal related to this, these are really the main issues related to it. So 1,000 square feet maximum for the ADU, 1 ADU allowed per residential lot, 1 parking space required per ADU, and then with reductions for transit access and the use of on-street parking. There's no owner occupancy requirement being proposed. Existing height, lot coverage, and setback standards do apply, so those aren't changing related to this. And then the requirement for the cool roof related to the accessory dwelling unit. So we are entirely aware that zoning can only address some things, and there are other things that need to be addressed outside of the zoning. So we do have some ADU kind of supportive programs that we're proposing as well to help with some of these issues that have come up that are kind of outside of the kind of zoning code realm, I suppose. So the first one is this amnesty for unpermitted and guest houses. So the proposal here is really just to create this amnesty program to be developed to create incentives to bring people into conformance with the code. So one of those things would be people that have developed the sleeping quarters and want to add a kitchen, make them an ADU. And there are a lot of these in the city right now. And then additionally, looking at unpermitted structures. We're still looking at timeline and how long this would take and what kind of incentives, whether it's fee waivers or fee reductions related to this, and then what the criteria would be. Obviously, it would be bringing it into line with health, life, and safety and other measures of that sort for those structures. But that is a program that we're looking to do to help to kind of bring people into conformance and deal with that. Second program, just related to affordable housing. We understand that we can't address everything just with the code amendment, especially with increasing cost of materials and all kinds of things going on right now. Not to mention tight housing supply. But we are looking at a couple programs, things like partnerships with Quadro and Pima County Land Trust to provide technical assistance for low and moderate income houses, developing those model plans, as Corin had mentioned earlier, to help kind of bring down costs through, and we're looking at design competitions to set those up, having a handful of those, and then looking at local funding sources to try to help and provide financial assistance to people who are looking to do this for it. So with that is the proposal, and I'm gonna hand this over to Bill, and he's gonna talk a little bit about breakout groups.
Okay, Dan, on time to the minute. Well done. We are committed to being done at 11:30, by the way. We will have a final poll at 11:25. So Dan, are we going to run a little poll right now?
Yeah, I think Corin's going to actually put that poll out there.
Okay, we're going to run a quick poll. Based on what you've seen so far in the proposal, we're going to ask you one question. Here it is. What aspects of this draft proposal do you think needs the most refinement, the most work? So if you can just quickly right now, just pick one of those, and we'll see what we get here. Let's see, Corin, let me know when you think everyone is finished.
We currently have 20 votes in, 21.
Okay, there are 37 of you. Let's come on, jump in here and add your voice to this one thing that the staff should, after this, we're going to hear more from you in a minute, but after this meeting, what do they need to really spend time on? And by the way, we appreciate all the chat stuff that's going on. That's a good way to get clarification questions from staff. Okay, Corin, tell me when we're done here.
I think I will end the polling and share the results.
Okay. All right, so we see that the big ones are the size and site, sustainability, then affordability, parking, occupancy, and others. Okay, thank you very much. Next poll will be when we're done, and that poll will be, how do you feel about this whole thing in general? This is very helpful. Okay, let's see if you can drop that off. Corin?
It should be
Are you good?
gone. Did you guys still see
it was on my screen. Okay, guys.
Okay.
Here's what we're going to do. We're going to go into breakout rooms for 20 minutes, 40 minutes total, 20 minutes apiece. We're going to have, we've selected these 4 topics based on everything we heard. These are the big things that people want to talk about. So I want you to look at these 4 things: ADU size, parking, occupancy, sustainability. There will be 4 rooms along with a Spanish room. So if you want to go to the Spanish language room, go there and you guys will pick your own topic. So what I'd like everybody to do is look at these. You're going to get a chance to talk about 2 of them. So pick your number 1 and number 2. Think about that right now. And then we're going to have you choose. So staff is going to be doing this in the breakout rooms. I already talked about how that's going to work. Just honor the agreements. And okay, now what you're going to do is go to join a breakout room. So there's a button. Yep, there's a button, and you're going to go to the room you want. And actually what happens when you go there, you'll see next to parking on the right, there's going to be a number, right? And you hit that number and it says join. So
Yep, and if you have any trouble with this, you can go to the bottom of your screen. You should have a breakout room button. You might need to click 3 buttons that say more, or it might just be there, and you should get the panel. And then if you have further trouble, Dan is our tech support, and we can actually manually put you into the room that you would like to be in.
Yeah, if you can't make it work, put it in chat. Say, please put me in the parking room, and Dan will put you in the parking room if you can't do it yourself. So everybody do that right now, and we'll get these breakout rooms going.
Yeah, and then just staff is working behind the scenes a little to get everybody settled. So if there's no staff member in your group when you arrive, just give us a minute or 2 and we will be right there.
And like Colette, just tell them, okay, if you can't find a breakout, tell Corin which one you want to go to, or tell Dan, I can't find the button, I want to go to this room.
So
it looks
Corin,
like a lot of people.
I have people in the Spanish group, so I'm gonna join that group.
That's great. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay, I'm Maria Garcia and I can't get in. I don't have a join button. I mean, I have a join button. It's marked circle red. I think there was another button.
Where do you want to go,
I don't
Maria?
see it. Parking?
Okay, Dan, put her in parking. This may take a second, but we'll get this done.
Okay.
Just hang tight.
All right.
I have the same question. I hit the join button. I don't see anything happening. I wonder if I'm in or not.
Stephen, where would you like to go?
Parking.
Okay.
This is Karen Schreiber. I'd like to get into occupancy, but can't seem to do it.
All right. Okay. You're welcome. Okay, we have
Anybody else having trouble? Richard Hayden, can we attend to him?
Yes, Richard, where would you like to go? Or Ronald, where would you like to go?
Parking.
Parking, okay. I can get you there.
Thank you.
Okay, and then we have, it looks like two or three more people. Linda,
Size.
where would you like to go?
Size.
5, let's see, was that Spanish, I think? Okay. And then Marjorie, can I help you get into a room? And there's a number that's 520-885-6128. May I help you to get into a room? You may have to hit *6 to unmute yourself. Hi, Rusty. We're going into breakout groups. Never mind. Okay, I think we're good. I will join.
Whoops, what just happened?
Hi there. Were we supposed to be leaving our break rooms or?
No, something went wrong.
Yeah, we were told to leave and come back to the main break room, and I don't know if she misunderstood. We were trying to get to parking.
Right.
Yes,
Um,
I'm trying to get to parking. Mhm.
Okay, we're hoping that Dan can figure this out. Um, One second, please. Okay, I'm gonna ask Dan.
I think
I think we
somehow,
might have accidentally closed the breakout rooms. I apologize for that, everyone.
Yeah.
I'm going to reopen them, and I think it should take everyone back to the room they were in, I hope. Otherwise, you might have to select it again, but we can spend another 10 minutes in those groups, so I apologize.
Yeah, it was a little bit confusing.
Yes, that was an error. I'm sorry about that. I'm going to open them again.
Yep, it's working. Okay, we're coming back.
Yes, we have 30 people. Excellent.
Okay.
Apologies
Wanna
again,
run the,
everyone, for our little snafu with the breakout room. So thanks for your patience.
Nice recovery, Corin.
I think most everybody got back to the group you were in.
Yeah.
Okay, good.
All
Well,
right.
I think most of those groups, all the groups that I was in, had some really good discussion. So thank you all for the feedback and input.
Do you want to run that last poll? Okay.
Yes, we're going to do another quick poll.
Okay.
Sorry,
This
hold
one's
on.
pretty simple. There you go. Do you feel this proposal will benefit your community? Strongly agree, somewhat disagree, somewhat agree, neutral, you disagree, and you strongly disagree. So put it on up there and we'll take a look at it.
Yep, we have a lot of submissions. We have 82% have voted. Get them in now because I'm about to end the polling. Okay.
Well, we have 30 people.
It takes out co-hosts, which are staff.
The co-host. Okay.
Zoom is very
Okay.
smart that way.
Okay.
It knows staff don't get to vote. We have it looks like that's what 70% strongly agree or somewhat agree that this will benefit our community.
Okay, those people that disagree strongly, people who are in 3, 4, and 5, be sure that you put your thoughts into chat or contact staff directly about your thoughts on this ADU. Okay, Corin, you want to remind people of the next meetings and stuff or next steps? Okay.
Thank you everyone for coming. We really do appreciate it. This was great conversation. We apologize about the little snafu with the breakout groups, but hopefully we got some good conversations in the time that we had. So we do have a couple additional meetings coming up. So we've had 2 so far. There'll be another 2. If you wanted to come out and talk some more about ADUs, feel free to do so. Tell your friends. Monday we have one May 24th from 5:30 to 7, and then Tuesday another one in the morning from 9 a.m. to 10:30. So we're looking forward to those discussions, getting your feedback. And then the next steps related to this. So we are going to be posting the recording of these meetings, the summary of the comments to our website next week. So we'll go through and do that, have a summary. We'll be reviewing that feedback from this meeting, from all the meetings from the Stakeholder Group, and integrated that into our proposal and kind of move forward with this. We are creating a new online poll with options for additional comments. We'll be sending that out to everyone. It's a little more targeted based on the proposal, so you'll be able to have that. And then we're developing that draft zoning text. And then once we do that, we'll kind of go through the formal process, which is a planning commission study session, which eventually will go to a public hearing where they'll make a recommendation to our mayor and council. And then mayor and council will also hold a public hearing and consideration. So there will be room for input at both of those meetings as well. So thanks again. We really appreciate it. And thank you for your attendance and participation.
Thank you.
Thank you everyone for being here.
Yeah, thanks.
All done, Tucson. Way to go.
Enjoy the rest of your weekend.
Thank you. Hey, because we were part of this meeting, will we be notified through email about public, okay, thank you.
Yes, great points. Everyone who registered or attended one of these meetings will now be on our ADU list, and you'll get emails about future meetings and just as the proposal goes through the process.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to know. Thank you.
Thanks.
Have a great rest of your week.
Thanks.
You too.
Thank you.
Have a good weekend, everyone. Bye. Thank you again.
Oops.
Sorry, I was unmuted. So what, yeah, there we go.
Karen, I just put an email address, Dan's email address in the chat, so you can just send an email to Dan. And we're also going to have an online survey open in just a few days, as Dan mentioned, where you can share additional thoughts. The survey that we just did, the poll, doesn't have like open-ended responses, but the one online will.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
So you'll get an email in just a couple days when that's live to everybody who attended these meetings.
Thank you.
Okay, take care.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Karen. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.